let's talk a bit about football and some positive news. If you're a Bulldogs fan after last night, a massive statement was made at Shark Park. I understand there were some injuries during the course of the game for the Sharks, but the Bulldogs 20, the Sharks 6. James Graham, I'm going to start with you. You're a Bulldogs man. It was a real, I know we're talking about all these different results, but for me, that was a clear statement that any doubts that we had over this side with their two big players out and Kickow at the present moment and Burton, they are a real contender this year.
Yeah, and a couple of other known starters. Sam Hughes,
Sure.
Arguably one of their best front rowers as well, unavailable. So, Jacob Kiraz, not available. So the Dogs aren't even at full strength. But I've just got to admire just their system, their commitment to that system in defence. Look, Adam Fanua-Blake is difficult to handle. And I spoke about this when I've seen teams try and handle Payne Haas. So you're naive if you don't think about what's next, because you know he's going to get quick play the balls and he's going to be destructive. Now, sometimes it's good to go out and plan for a Fanua-Blake or a Payne Haas that are going to have those destructive runs and a quick play the ball. And you go, we're going to tackle him like this. We're going to get 3 in. We're going to get our hooks and our handles, and we're going to roll him onto his back. Well, you're almost lying to yourself, because you know he's going to get quick play the balls, but it's what you do next.
Yeah.
It's what you do next. Are you willing to push harder and scramble like your life depends on it? And that's exactly what the Bulldogs did. They faced so much adversity in that game as well. Defensively, we know what they're going to do. The game awareness from Josh Curran to sneak around the back on the play of the ball from Teague Wilton after the dropout went out on the full. Talk about coach killers. I think Fitzgibbon would well be in his rights to punch his players for not.
I know
an act of violence. Oh my God! Can you imagine being a coach and seeing and witnessing that? You either act out in violence or you instantaneously combust or something.
I'm glad I played with Wayne Bennett. His right hook wasn't that deadly.
Couldn't imagine what was going on. But then, the scramble. They had that Montoya try robbed from them on the stroke of half time, but they just come out and keep on performing. It was I thought Jacob Preston, that left-hand side, was sensational as well. Bronson Cherry against, I guess, his old club in a way.
It was. Yeah. It's where he started his career. Hoops, you were on the sideline, and it was almost at half-time. I was like, they've thrown everything at the Dogs, the Sharks, and I'm not going to say, they gave up by any means, but they gave them everything they had in that first half, and the Dogs showed that, mate, they are just steely in defence at the moment.
Yeah, I think you got to give all the credit to Canterbury. It was a Dogs of War style of defensive performance. The line speed, we're going to have Cameron Ciraldo on later, so we'll definitely ask him about the line speed and that system that he's built. But it reminds me so much of what Ricky Stewart implemented at the Sydney Roosters back in 2002. They won the premiership that year. Phil Gould was also at the club at that time. And the way that they just relentlessly go after sides, Cronulla were right up for the contest, and they had all the field position, plenty of chances early on. But it was the Bulldogs, and Jacob Preston and Bailey Hayward, he deserves huge plaudits for his performance. He's a young gun, the grandson of Paul Hayward. He has come through Canterbury's junior pathways, a St. George Dragons junior from the Canterbury Junior District Rugby League. And he was that impressive. Preston was an example of good coaching. He normally plays on the right side. He was moved to the left with Billy Kickow being out. And he was an absolute weapon on that edge. Harry Hayes came up with an effort play.
Hasn't he become a front rower? Just unbelievable.
Well, he's a great story because he actually came through as a centre, Jimmy. He was a centre, and then I think it's Cameron Ciraldo that decided, hang on, you know what? Yeah. This bloke's super fit. I reckon I can turn him into, put him in the middle and turn him into...
Isn't that a hit to the ego?
but you look at how well...
Isn't that a hit to the ego? Mate, working on your Gidley flick, and now just work on your James Graham and Shane Webke hit up, mate.
It's funny, has there ever been a conversion from the centres to the middle in the history of rugby league?
Gene Miles did it. Gene Miles was a great centre, and then he played, I think, for Australia, obviously. And then Mel Meninga, don't forget, played a test match in a number 12 jersey as well.
Is that right?
Yes, big Malcolm. But like Malcolm was too powerful. He went back into the centres real quick.
Hey, Gordy, like you've played in some phenomenal teams, and I'm thinking back to my experience when I played in really good defensive systems, and it's not only you take credit for that, but it's what you do to the opposition. Because when the opposition throw the kitchen sink at you, a team like Cronulla did yesterday evening, that you're landing blows to them because they're just the level of frustration. We can't break this team down. And then you start to panic, you start to question yourself, and not only are you resilient, but you actually gain from that experience because you're attacking the opposition mentally through your resolve and just willingness to stay in the contest, to keep going and not go away. The
great sides that I've ever watched, right? And I think in any sport, they beat you physically, they beat you on the scoreboard, but they beat you mentally, right? Because then you know that you got to go to this level. And the Dogs, right? So the thing that stuck in my brain last night is, when you're watching a game and you just see a cover tackle, and back in the day when you're watching the Bulldogs, that would have been Steve Mortimer, that's Terry Lamb, that's one of those guys, and you just go back to that player that was doing it. Every Bulldogs player does it. I think there was a break on the right, Ramey, and they put a kick in. There's a dog come flying across and just jumps on the ball. You don't know. It's next man up mentality, which is so good. And then normally when you're playing in a side and you're working really hard, they just tend to do it with a smile and then they enjoy it. It's never a chore. And watching the Dogs go out there and, I think Hoop said it, like the Dogs are war. Well, it's like that they just enjoy getting under people's skin. Like there's a pack mentality about them. It's one in all and they all go and they're fighting over the scraps. And that goes a long way to winning a lot of footy games. I didn't give them a hope against a big Cronulla pack at home. The way Cronulla started the season, I thought, it's going to be a tough day at the office for the Dogs.
With Burton out especially and Kickow, I was like, but it's next man up.
Well, Gordy's spot on in that I think a lot of people looked at the inclusion and addition of Adam Fanua-Blake this year and they thought, okay, well, Cronulla's been a top 4 side for the past couple of seasons, but this is going to help them really open that window up. I'm not saying that can't happen because they have been very good up until last night, but I thought the way the Dogs went after their halves, like Braden Trindle has started this season like a house on fire, but last night they hustled and bustled and really got in his face. It was a similar story with Nico Hines and Jacob Preston and Bronson Sherry on that left edge for the Bulldogs. So the Dogs, they're a great story at the moment. First time they've won 4 in a row to start a season, Ben, since
competition.
1993.
I think as well.
Are you serious? 1993.
It's the first time since 1993 that the Dogs have won 4 games in a row to start a season and been on top of the comp.
Wasn't a good year for Canterbury that year in the end. Wasn't a good year.
I think as well, like just observing the Dogs' performances to begin the season. Yesterday was a great victory. They're 4-0.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of improvement in them.
Sure.
Like they're not the finished product yet. I think they know that. I think their coaching staff know that. And then when you look to the bench of the players unavailable, great to see them all in attendance as well.
Yeah.
By the way, which often can be criticised when players aren't, but let's focus on the players that do turn up and watch their team play when they're not required to be there.
That's a really good jab, Jimmy.
Well, I think it's a big statement. It shows
where your organisation's at.
They're united.
It shows that the club and those players want to be there because they want to contribute in a certain way. Like Matt Burton can advise the halves, kick out. Preston, you're playing on the left. Okay, this is what I'd be looking to do on Nicker. Like it shows a club that are united and they care about one another.
They really are. I mean, I saw a video yesterday when they got off the bus. Kickow was holding the beatbox, dragging that in. The team song last night, Matt Burton led the team song in the shed. So, although they're injured, and we probably don't give enough credit to what Crichton's done to unite. He is like just absolutely united. Like he's their spiritual leader now in that side. I just love what he's done for him. And I understand what he did.
I'm
at
starting
Penrith.
to feel that you're turning back into a Bulldog, Ben.
No. I just like good quality rugby league, and I'm a neutral, mate. I'm a neutral supporter.
Come on, you're a Bulldog. You are.
I supported the Dogs as a
Ricky
kid.
said on this show once, you're the only bloke who wouldn't have to get dressed up and you could be the Bulldogs mascot.
Did he say that?
He did.
Did he say that? Forgot about that.
I don't know whether he said
Okay,
or
all right. Look,
Bulldogs.
they're going along well. They play Newcastle next week, and in the late game. And well done, rightly so. They're leading the competition after 4 weeks. Do you think that this has tarnished his reputation as one of the Manly greats? Boys, this is obviously we're back on this Daly Cherry Evans thing. Will he be booed this afternoon? Like, in all seriousness, like when he runs out, do you think the Fort Pines?
Well, mate, what do you reckon? Because you're not allowed to boo.
Dobbo wouldn't get it.
Look, I don't know whether
What
or not.
do you think?
This is honestly, I don't know. I'm a bit like a fan in the sense that. Where's
you're
the
not.
truth?
You're
Where's
not
the
the-
truth?
you're not
Where's
the
the
Lakers
truth?
fan.
No, but are you booing Manly or are you booing Daly Cherry Evans? Like that, and because
It's the player.
yeah,
The
They're not gonna
club's
be
always
booing
bigger than
Manly.
the player.
you don't think that there would be people booing Manly over because
not
there's going to be
Manly.
some anger about Manly probably haven't handled this correctly.
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
saying
Just it's either the CEO, the coach, or DCE. It's not Manly,
That's right. Yeah.
That's fair.
Got his
right?
spot on.
So it's not Manly.
Yeah, it's the people.
To
It's
Hines'
one or
people.
the person.
It's the personalities.
To Hindy's point about that he has tarnished his reputation to a degree, I've got to say he's bang on because Daly had done so much great work in repairing his image because when he was a young bloke coming through, look, he was off with some of his Manly teammates at stages because of the way that he's handled previous contract negotiations. It made a lot of headlines and created a lot of furore at the time. He was booed in Queensland. There was a period of his career where supposedly some of the Maroons blokes didn't want to play with him, and so he ended up not being picked in the Maroons side. And he had done so much good work through his actions on the field, like the way that he'd led Manly over the course of the last 5 seasons, led the Maroons. He's a wonderful role model for the game. He's a great bloke. But he had completely won everybody back over. And then I feel like now, because of the way that he's handled this, that has driven a wedge. And I don't know that he can win that. Certainly the Manly people, I don't know if he'll win them back.
Well, I think that, just been doing a bit of thinking in the past couple of breaks. And Dobbo, you mentioned it, how he felt disrespected because Manly went up to where the level of financial remuneration that Daly Cherry Evans thought he should be at, and then therefore felt disrespected. So what that says, it's about money, and then the fans don't want to see that this person that has previously backflipped before, signed away from the club, come back, like Hoops spoke about that damaged reputation, rebuilt reputation. I'm going to take you back to Cooper Cronk, and do you remember when Adam Reynolds was coming off contract?
Yeah, I do.
Right.
At South.
At South Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember what Cooper Cronk said?
No.
And who is probably the best half, or maybe up there in the top halfbacks in the game's history, and certainly in recent generations. He spoke about Adam Reynolds' inability in the past few seasons to get his team over the line. So if you apply that logic to the Cherry Evans situation, signed a mega deal in 2015. Has he got him anywhere? Has he got that team anywhere?
Just because Cooper.
That's certainly been what Jimmy is saying. That has certainly been a talking point amongst some of the Manly old boys over the course of the last 7 days. Is have a look at his record, right? Now, yes, they've been in a prelim. Yes, they've been in final series. But to Jimmy's point and what Cooper raised back then, it's about if you're going to judge
for the halfback position. So with that in mind, right? With that in mind, when we go to these last 2 years, well, let's look at Manly as a situation now. This season, next season, and maybe the season after. Like, they could be in a bit of a potential window. I think this year's gone with all this coming. Like, so he's ruined the opportunity for this year.
Absolutely.
In his last year of this deal. But then you look at it and you go, well, hang on a minute. Maybe I owe the club something. Maybe if I'm not chewing up over $1 million, that helps the club recruit in other areas or keep other players because we know their outside backs are other clubs are coming for their outside backs. We know in 2 years' time there's a new franchise coming into the competition, which is again going to increase the pressure on the club's ability to retain their players.
Can I ask why you guys say
it's a touch one? No. It's a tough one because Jimmy makes some really valid points. But if you think of Manly in the last 10 years, I think no Tommy, no title.
Yep.
That's you know what I mean? And then like
that's been proven.
Nathan Hindmarsh, and Heine's an absolute legend. But if I think of Manly, I think Beaver, I'm guarantee he would have got offered huge money in your Stewarts. And there's so many great players in that organisation. But then that was their decision, right, to stay. So this is not all on DC. But sometimes if you've come through that era and those guys were taking pay cuts and it was a 10-year deal and the reason they gave it to me, and we've lost Kieran Foran and we've lost some of these players that maybe could have got the job done with us, but we couldn't afford them in the end.
You raise a great point, Gordy, around Beaver Menzies, who, when you think of Manly, you think of Cliff Lyons, you think of Beaver Menzies, you think of Bozo Fulton. Beaver actually finished his career, won a grand final on the bench so that they could bring through the next generation of forwards like Glenn Stewart and Anthony Watmo and those types of players. So he was prepared to make that style of a sacrifice to keep the side together and give them the best chance of winning.
I'm going to get to the old boys in a second. I just want to ask you this. You talked about this season's gone, in your opinion. But when Adam Reynolds left South Sydney, the same year that he made a decision he was going to Brisbane, and believe you me, the same kind of hysteria was going on from Redfern as what's going on in Manly at the moment. He took them to a grand final. Now
they had Wayne Bennett as their coach.
Okay, well, but what I'm saying is, you might write off this season. I'm not prepared to say that it's gone. Now I understand that there's going to be.
All right, okay. Does it make it easier or more difficult? What does it do to the degree?
Brings more difficulty.
To the degree of difficulty for Manly to win a premiership this season?
What can I ask? Was Sam Burgess? No. So Sam Burgess was at the organisation. They still had some really good, strong leaders. Jake Travojevic come out and said, "I wouldn't do it." One of his teammates. That's the loudest voice in that dressing room.
Yeah.
If you talk about...
That was very strong, by the way, him saying that.
Who do you respect the most? So we're all talking about it. Our opinions matter for nothing. In that dressing room, if someone's talking, if someone's got the respect of the crowd and everybody that's ever put on a Manly jersey, I'd throw Jake in there. And I reckon he's held as high as someone like a Nathan Hindmarsh and those guys that are just the heart and soul of an organisation.
Think about that as well, Gordy. If you're a Manly fan at home and you see Jakey T come on and he can barely disguise it, he can barely keep it together.
He's disappointed.
He's a fan himself, and he's like, oh look, well, why would I ever leave Manly? I just wouldn't do it. And
they got offered the farm. And he and Tommy got offered the farm.
Yeah,
they got offered a shite load.
And also, you know when I made some comments before about the primary reason for being the short-term financial remuneration. Like, think about what Daly Cherry Evans is now going to lose. Think about what he's now going to lose. Gordy, how good is it when you go back to Brisbane to celebrate your previous grand final victories? Like a 10-year celebration, 20-year celebration?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Do you think Cherry Evans will be welcome back to celebrate the 11?
Yes. And just on that point,
do you think it's going to cause him anxiety? You think he's not going to cause him anxiety?
No, because within
that playing group,
at that time he was there, and there are some personalities that don't get on with him. I'm first to admit that.
So do you think when he walks back into that celebration in 2011, so 2031, 20 years to celebrate that, do you think he's going to feel? Do you think he's going to be happy? He's got more money in the last 2 years.
I don't think it bothers him. I think he'll be happy. I think he'll be happy.
There you go. Well, then that's why you say it's not Manly's fault. So then you're saying, this, and he's been squeezed. When you say it doesn't bother him.
No, but I don't know. I don't know what Daly Cherry Evans thinks. In 20 years' time, he's going back for a reunion from 2011. Come on. It's hypothetical.
No, it's not hypothetical. It's fact that he will go back to that, or maybe not even go.
But I don't know how he feels.
Because people within that group would be so pissed off, they would not want to make him welcome. And I've said, you know that some players are not welcome back at certain clubs, despite what they've done in their past.
I didn't know that.
Hasler, right, who I loved at the Dogs, and like he goes to Belmore with the Gold Coast, and like the fans are into him, booing him. And like, think about what do you
But if you won a comp there, which unfortunately you got beaten twice, and I mean that genuinely, but he would go back to those reunions.
I know, but think about how the fans turn.
Yeah.
Because of and that wasn't even about money.
No.
One thing I will give Daly credit for, he has got enormous mental fortitude. Like, to be able to deal with this week, I actually don't think this week's anywhere near the inferno as what he dealt with
At
when
the
he
Titans.
Yeah. When he did. Well, firstly, when he signed to go to the Gold Coast.
No. When he did it to the Titans, every time he played here, even if he was playing against the Broncos, he got booed.
Yeah.
Correct.
He's playing at his home ground.
Yep.
So he played up here twice might have been 3 years apart.
Yeah.
He didn't run out that week against the Gold Coast Titans.
Yeah.
No.
He's going to run out of 4 points a day in front of a packed house and those people. And when you're a fan, and that's what Jimmy Graham said last week, you want to rip up your tickets, you want to burn all your stuff when they lose, and there's all these emotions that go through you. There's going to be a fan that feels like he's turned these back on him. There's going to be a fan that's gone and bought a jersey that's going to feel that. And he's allowed to feel that. Because he's a fan and he's paid his money.
Especially.
But he's not allowed to boo because Ben Dobbin said he's not a real fan if he boos.
Especially if the fans feel it's about finances.
Well, they know it is.
You're hot on the bunker this week, Buzz.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm not necessarily hot on the bunker. I'm hot on the NRL for the fact they've taken all transparency away from refereeing. They've gagged all the coaches. They've abolished Graham Annesley's weekly explanation on Mondays for the media, which gave fans the opportunity to find out what exactly went wrong. They've stopped announcing who the referees are each week, and, you know, I don't necessarily agree with. There were a couple of instances this week. The Moses Leota try on Thursday night, Jimmy.
Yeah, that was taken off.
I want to know why.
Yeah, me too.
I dead set want to know why, and I think Penrith fans deserve to know why.
Gee, it's a fascinating game if he gets that try.
But also, if it's not a try, educate us.
Exactly.
As lovers and fans of the game, educate us all on why that's not a try. Because again, I think that the overwhelming majority of NRL fans, if you polled them, they would say that is a try. So why are we all wrong?
I bet if that went up as a try, it stays a try.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with it.
No, I understand
Dan.
what you're saying. You're saying, why can't they come out and explain why it was...
Yeah, I want to know why. I also want to know why Selwyn Cobbo, trying to retrieve a 40-20 at Suncorp Stadium the other night, not only had his foot on the line, but over the line.
But I reckon that is a mistake that a match official on the run can make, and I think people can accept that.
No, but Jim, hold on. The touch judge was in the perfect view. It was a howler, an absolute howler. We've got millions of dollars worth of technology, high definition, 4K, stop frame, everything. Why, with the howlers, a game-turning howler, why the bunker could not come in and say, boys, 10 seconds ago, we have missed a shocker. Let's go back. Why can't...
Look, I understand, but I worry about where we
Where's
go.
the line in the sand?
Where we go if we allow that to come into the game. But on the
2 years ago, they used to do it. They'd go back 2 sets for foul play.
I don't like that. I think that the bunker should be, exclusively for try scorers. For potential try scores. I'm not a fan of them jumping in for potential hip drops or head high tackles.
So if that happens in a grand final, you're happy to let it go?
I'd like the referee or the touch judge, him or her, to make the right call. But they're always going to make mistakes. The bunker's there to protect them, to correct mistakes. Yes, and I'm with you on that. That's why it highlights the Moses Leota, the Montoya try for the Dogs, where Stone Street was like, I don't even know, glanced by Cherry, if at best. Like the bunker's there to have our most influential plays, i.e. tries or not tries, awarded or not. And I think they got a couple wrong there. And in my opinion, they did. But I want to hear Graham come out and say, James, no, you're wrong. This is why the bunker was right.
Absolutely. You know what I also want to ask Graham Annesley, but I can't? I want to ask him why Reid Marnie wasn't sin-binned last night for jumping on a player on the ground, Daniel Atkinson, and belting him in the head. Why was he not sin-binned?
I think they're legitimate questions that we would want to know the answer.
You're like this, Jimmy. I think it's the Trumpisation of society. Don't explain. Just do what you're going to do. Don't explain. Because Annesley now doesn't do his Monday thing, does he? Does he do the Monday thing where he explains?
No,
that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Their attitude is, well, you know what? Here's a blueprint. Just let's do what we're going to do. Never explain. What's the difference? All we're going to do is draw attention to. I'm not saying it's right, Buzz, but I'm saying all it does is draw attention to mistakes.
Can I say this? I think overall our referees are so professional, so fit, so up with rugby, and it's human to make mistakes. But when the bunker's involved and when they've got all that equipment and all that technology, I think we're entitled to explanations. I really do. And you know what? It feels like these bad decisions to me go against the crap teams. The Dolphins haven't won a game. They were down by 4 points, had 6 tackles on the line. They should have. Broncos go up the other end, score, potential 12-point turnaround. And that's not good. And as I said before, it's an old line, but if it happens in the grand final, we got a bunker there and we don't act on it, all hell will break loose.
Buzz, I reckon people can cop that one, the Cobbo one. I reckon it's of course you don't want that mistake made, but I reckon people can cop that because it's live, it's in the run of play.
But his foot was over the line, Dan. It wasn't close.
It was a shocking mistake. But I'm saying it's like a forward pass. But you can cop them. I'm not saying you want them.
You can't.
But I'm saying Liotta, that's an inexcusable error. You've got all this time. It's a try, and that I think Penrith are a red hot chance to win that game. South were panicking at that point. That's the inexcusable one. When you slow it down, you have all the time in the world and you still don't get it right because you want to back up the on-field referee who was only having a guess.
I'd like to see them involved when the calls are not subjective, when it's bleedingly, blatantly obvious that a major mistake has been made. Come in. Give them a hand.
Well, I think, the Radley forward pass for the try for the Roosters, it got, in my opinion, the match officials on field got that wrong, but we can't use the bunker to interject there. But for those try scoring the try scoring situations, I think for whatever reason it appears the person in charge of the bunker that presses the button, on whether it's a try or no try, is getting more than their fair share incorrect.
Well, that's the problem,
and that's where we need to go to a 3-person panel. To take away that responsibility because they're getting it wrong, and maybe have some other opinion in there and go, hang on, I think Leota's got that down. I think he's regained control. I think that's a try. If it's 3 people in there, we go with the majority. I don't think 3 people make that mistake.
Jimmy, to their credit, I think the NRL tried to speed up the process in the bunker, and if you notice the Leota examination, it was very quick.
Yeah.
Couple of times. Now, what they used to do last year when we all said, can you stop holding the game?
Yeah, it would take 10 minutes.
Too slow, right? They used to actually frame it with the hand on the ball on the ground. They didn't do that. They just wanted to get the decision made. Terrible. It wasn't going to change that outcome. Penrith weren't going to beat South.
See, I'm not sure you're right.
I'm with you. I think they were coming.
At least they would have had 9 minutes to score 2 tries against a team that stopped trying to score. And Penrith, anyway, that's a pointless arguing that.
I want to know what's happening and why.
I reckon with that one, went up as no try. They saw enough that they could back up the on-field and just got on with the game.
Yeah, but the ref went upstairs because he didn't know.
Of course he went up and guessed. I understand. That's the problem. They're having a guess, and the bunker is trying to back up that decision.